Poéticos y la gran banda, con un mensaje de conciencia para el mundo. Escucha esto. En una noche fría yo te conocí. Llevabas el alma rota de sufrir.
De tanto sufrir.
No sabías qué hacer con tu destino. No sabías tú a dónde ir. Llorabas porque tu madre se había ido, pero la mala te había recibido. En un país pobre y corrupto como el mío, donde no hay espacio para ángeles caídos.
Recuerdo ese día, te miré destrozado, te miré como un perro vagabundo y rechazado. Mira este mundo que está lleno de pecado, Diosito es el único, recuérdalo mi hermano bueno. Me disculpo si te hago mal, solo abre tu mente y ponte a reflexionar. Que en la calle algo malo a ti te puede pasar, ni de mi
Motor espero que te lleve limpiando.
Ratas que vuelan son el producto del delirio, mientras la gente solo huye sin sentido. En un país con tantas drogas como el mío, ya no hay espacio para ángeles caídos.
Ok, venimos una vez más cantando este tema, pero con mensaje, lo poético junto a la gran banda.
Olvida el sufrimiento para que puedas superar. Dime qué puedo hacer para poderte ayudar.
My husband and I were living in Honduras whenever we got to spend some time in a government-run children's home in Honduras. Now, everything about this government-run home is what you have heard of when you hear about institutional homes in third world countries. So, there aren't nearly enough employees, the food is incredibly subpar, water wasn't on at all times, so a lot of the kids were pretty dirty with a lot of rashes and different things on their skin. It was just a tough place to be. There was one kid in particular that I saw him get into a fight. I broke it up and just sat with him as he cried and consoled him. Once he started feeling better, he ran off, I thought, to play again. But then, about 20 minutes later, he was in another fight with a different kid. There was an employee standing nearby as a crowd gathered, and she was doing absolutely nothing to stop this fight. So I went over, asked her if she was going to do anything. She said she didn't want to get hit, but that I could do something if I wanted. So I grabbed this child, whose name is Richard, and just held him until I realized that she had sent for like the 4 biggest and strongest kids in the home. And I still just remember them strutting across the courtyard. You could tell this is their job and they've done this before, probably not just with Richard, but with a lot of the kids when they would get out of hand. But each of them grabbed either an arm or a leg and they just started dragging him upstairs to the boys' dorm. I followed them because I wanted to make sure that they weren't gonna hurt him on the way up, and then I thought that for sure they would get up there and then just stop and leave him alone, let him calm down. But instead, when I got up there, a crowd had gathered and all of the boys just started hitting him and sitting on him and punching him and just telling me that, oh, we're just trying to calm him down, as though that would ever actually calm a child down. Once again, the employee had followed all of us up and was watching this happen, and I just asked her, could you please just get the other boys out of here? So somehow she was able to round them up, they all left, and my husband slipped in right before she closed, locked the door, and locked the 3 of us in this room. And my husband and I sat with Richard for the next half an hour, and he took his shirt off and he just started tearing it into shreds and saying over and over again, I don't want to be here, I want my mommy, and God please help me. And that was hearing him say those words over and over again, and just seeing how much pain he was in, and witnessing myself how terrorized he was on a regular basis was something that I couldn't forget. I couldn't just walk away from. I couldn't just journal about it or pat him on the back and tell him good luck or tell him I'd pray for him. Or I just felt like it was something that I had to do something about. I knew that the entire center wasn't great, but my focus was this kid. I just wanted him to be in a better spot. And that's something that I thought about for weeks and weeks. We went back to our job, went back to our life in Honduras, but I just couldn't forget about him. So I started contacting other children's homes in Honduras, just trying to find a place that would take this 10-year-old boy with a little bit of anger problems. And then finally I found a home called Pro Niño that they said that he had actually been living in the home before and had run away, and that they were very happy that he was found and they'd be glad to take him back. So in August of 2010, he got moved back to Pro Niño, and I started visiting there on a regular basis, but just to visit him. I actually got a little bit annoyed with all the other boys whenever they would come around when I'd arrive. I wanted them to know that I was not there for them. I was only there for Richard. But of course, little by little, I got to know the kids, got to know their stories. Then I started visiting 5 of the kids and then 10 of the kids, and it just kept growing. And this home is a home for former street kids. So as I got to know them, that's whenever I started learning more about why kids were on the street, what brought them back, what their lives were like, and the things that they had to overcome once they were in a children's home.
My name is Jilly Schultz, and I started officially working with the Children's Home Project in June of 2013. So I got started unofficially with the Children's Home Project in the summer of 2012. I was a short-term volunteer for a week at Pro Niño, and right after that week, actually, I moved down to Honduras and began teaching in Cofradía, which is about 40 minutes outside of San Pedro, or about an hour and a half away from Pro Niño. And after that week at Pro Niño, I kind of decided, okay, it's not just by chance that I'm in this country and so close to these kids. Like, I can definitely make this work on the weekends. So I started going to Pro Niño every weekend and getting to know the kids more and being a familiar face. And in October of 2012, one of my favorite kids, Carlos, ran away, and he was a little bit older. I think he was 16 at the time, 15 or 16 at the time, and it was kind of obvious that he couldn't have another chance at Pro Niño. He had used all his chances and he didn't want to be there. So when I talked to the leadership at Pro Niño, they kind of pointed me in the right direction of what stoplight he worked at and said, you can go visit him, it's up to you. So one day after school, I just started walking the city of San Pedro, like trying to find this stoplight, asking people if they knew this kid Carlos who juggles on the street. And that was kind of my first look into street kids, and I was shocked when people would say, oh yeah, like he's probably at that street light right there. And then I would go and be like, this is not Carlos. Like, there's another child here, but this is not the kid I'm looking for. But I just realized how many kids were in this similar situation. And so kept walking, eventually found Carlos that day and was able to talk to him a little bit about why he left and what he wanted. And the only thing that was very clear was that he did not want to go back to Pro Niño that day, or he didn't want to be in a center. And so I left, went home, and it was one of those realizations that one visit to the street and seeing him isn't enough. That isn't going to do anything. That isn't going to change anything. So weekends at Pro Niño got split into weekends at Pro Niño and then also on the street, afternoons on the street in San Pedro, until I would go to the streets in the afternoons after school, and mostly just to spend time with Carlos and keep tabs on him, seeing what he's up to. But that obviously spread, and getting to know the circle of kids that he hung out with on the street. And then that circle just kind of grew until there's just so many kids that I would go see, and I would have to plan my visits. What stoplight am I going to go to today? And it became a lot, actually. And I think in January of 2014 was when Jenny approached me and said, so would you like to kind of keep doing this full time when you're done teaching and stay on as a Children's Home Project employee? I think I thought about it for 15 seconds before saying yes, absolutely. Once a child reaches a certain age and it's kind of obvious that they're not going to school, the go-to answer is, okay, well, I'm gonna go to the street to make money to help my parents, because if we have one parent that's working, maybe the dad is a security guard or the mom washes off or cleans offices for a living, but that they'll make maybe $5 to $7 a day for an 8-hour long day. Obviously with many children, even for one person, that it's just not an income that you can live on. So kids will go to the street and earn anywhere between $5 to $20 a day that they'll take home and to help their family. So I do think that is how the majority of the kids start off on the street. And those are what I call part-time street kids that aren't living on the street. They have a family, they have a house, but they want to help, so they're on the street during the day.
So there are 3 main things that we focus on in order to help the kids, and this is also a way to keep them off of the street. The first one is education. The kids will never have success in life if they never learn how to read and write. So we want them to gain an education simply to have success. But then also, getting an education gives them a sense of purpose and self-worth. The more they learn, the more they feel like, the more confidence they have. There are a couple kids that we work with that no one in their family is able to read or write. So once they learn that and are able to share that with their family during family visits, they're just glowing. They're so proud of themselves that they're able to do this. It's something that's new and unique with their family. And also, going to school, having homework, it's a diversion. It's something that keeps them busy, keeps their mind off of the street and off of all the things that they had been doing beforehand. Then the second part is access to mental health services. All of the kids have experienced some sort of trauma. Again, you would think, take them off the street, take them away from that trauma, and everything will be better. But the reality is, once you're away from that, then you have a lot of time to think about what you've experienced. If we don't give them the assistance they need to deal with what they've been through and learn what to do with all of the memories that they have, then often they'll go back to the street just for the drugs that will help them forget. Or because once you're back into survival mode again, it's hard to think about much else than surviving. So that's another way that you can just forget about what you've experienced. So all of the kids need services, help from a psychologist in order to overcome what they've experienced. One of the most important things we do is the relationships that we have with the kids. We spend a lot of one-on-one time getting to know the kids, playing games with them, learning about their families. Often we get to meet their families. And so often it's relationships that will prevent them from going back to the streets. A lot of the kids have been told all of their life that they're not worth anything, that they're not going to amount to anything, that they're always going to be poor, that they just don't deserve love, they don't deserve a good life. And it's because of relationships with them that starts those thoughts, those beliefs that they have about themselves start to change. That they realize that they are worth something, that they do have a future, that they're important, and someone does love them very much.